Okay, now we're going to do or solve rational equations. So our first step is to get rid of the denominator, so we'll multiply through by the common denominator, which is 2x. So we'll multiply both sides by 2x and 2x. And on the left we get 6x squared, and on the right we have 2x over 2 plus 2x over x. And here the 2's divide out, here the x's divide out, and we get 6x squared equals x plus 2. Now we'll get 0 on one side, everything else on the other, so we'll subtract x from both sides and subtract 2 from both sides, and that equals 0. Now it turns out this does factor. So and the factors of 6 are 6 and 1, or 2 and 3, and the factors of 2 are just 1 and 2. And look at this, 2 times 2 is 4, and 3 times 1 is 3, and their difference is 1. So we've got a 2x and a 3x, and we want 2 times 2, so 2 times 2 and 3 times 1, and the larger product will get the negative, so 2 times 2 is 4, and that'll be a negative, and we'll give a positive here. Now let's try it out. 2x times 3x is 6x squared. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. Now 1 times 3x is 3x, minus 4x is a minus x. That's what we needed. And so our solutions, letting 2x plus 1 equals 0, solving for x, we get 2x equals negative 1, or x equals 1/2. For the other factor, we'll set 3x minus 2 equal to 0. So 3x equals, adding 2 to both sides, 2. Dividing through by 3, we get x equals 2/3. So our solutions are, and by the way, this should be a negative 1/2. So our solutions are negative 1/2 and 2/3, and we're done. So here we have another rational equation to solve. And notice we have common denominators. So let's write everything on the left over one denominator. And that's going to be over x plus 5 equals negative 1/2. Now look, the x's, or the 4's, divide out, or add out. They add out. And we're left with x over x plus 5 equals negative 1 over 2. Now we'll multiply both sides by the common denominator, which is 2 times x plus 5. That way we'll get rid of the denominators. That's 5. And here the 2's divide out, and here the x plus 5's divide out, so we've got 2x equals negative x plus 5. So we'll distribute that negative, and we get a negative x minus 5. Now we'll add x to both sides, and so x plus 2x is 3x. And here we got rid of the x, so we just have a minus 5. Now finally, let's divide both sides by 3. And so the 3's divide out, and we get x equals negative 5/3, and we are done. Well, here's our final rational equation to solve. And the denominators are all different, so we'll multiply through by the common denominator to eliminate denominators, and the common denominator is 6 times x minus 1 times x plus 1, and 6 times x minus 1 times x plus 1. Okay, here the 6's divide out, and we've got 5, and the product of these two is going to be x squared minus 1. X squared minus 1. Here, when we multiply this set of factors times this first term, the x minus 1's will divide out, and we'll get 6 times x plus 1 times x plus 1. And now there's the minus sign. And when we multiply this set of factors times this term, the x plus 1's will divide out, and we'll get 6 times x minus 1 times x minus 1. Okay, now we'll FOIL this out, and this is just a perfect square. When we square it, we get 6 times x squared plus 2x plus 1. And this is going to be minus 6 times, and again a perfect square, x squared minus 2x plus 1. And that's going to equal 5x squared, distributing that 5 minus 5. Now let's distribute the 6, and we get 6x squared plus 12x plus 6, and distributing the minus 6x squared plus, minus times a minus is a plus, 12x minus 6 equals 5x squared minus 5. Now look at this. These 6x squareds add out. They have opposite signs, and so do the 6's. And so we're left with 12x and 12x, which is 24x. And that equals 5x squared minus 5. So if we subtract 24x from both sides, we'll have 5x squared minus 24x minus 5 equals 0. If I'd subtracted that, I would have had this minus 24x over here, and what I did, instead of leaving the 0 on this side, I moved it over to this side. So now, that should factor. Let's try it out. And the factors of factors of 5 are 5 and 5. And so we're going to have a 5x and we need a 5, and I'll put an x here and a 1, and we want the larger product to get the negative, and the other one will get the positive. So look at this. 5x times x is 5x squared. 1 times negative 5 is negative 5. 1x is x. 5x times negative 5 is negative 25x. And the difference of x and 25x is 24x, and that's a negative. So now the solutions are, well, 5x plus 1 equals 0. So 5x equals negative 1, or x equals negative 1/5. Here, we'll set x minus 5 equal to 0. Solving for x, we get x equals 5. So our solutions are x equals negative 1/5, and 5's the other solution. So x can equal negative 1/5 or 5.